The drums never stopped. They beat against the thick, humid air of the Hungarian marshes like a heavy, rhythmic heart that refused to die. Inside the walls of Szigetvar, the sound was more than just noise. It was a countdown. It was August 1566. To the east, the horizon was no longer a line of trees and sky. It was a shifting, glittering sea of silk, steel, and smoke. Suleiman the Magnificent, the most powerful man on earth, had arrived. He brought with him an army that defied logic, over 100,000 soldiers. Janissaries with their white caps and curved blades, Sipahi cavalry on restless mounts, and enough gunpowder to level a mountain. And standing in his way, a single crumbling fortress surrounded by stagnant water, held by a man named Nikola Zrinski, and just 2,300 souls. They call this the Thermopylae of the North, because just like the 300 Spartans who stood in the mountain pass over 2,000 years before, the men inside Szigetvar knew exactly how this was going to end. They hadn't come here to win. They had come here to buy time for the rest of the world with their blood. Zrinski stood on the ramparts, his hand resting on the cold stone. He was 58 years old, a veteran of 100 skirmishes, and he could smell the rot coming from the swamps. He looked at his men, mostly Croatians and Hungarians. Some were boys who'd never seen a cannon fire. Others were grey-bearded warriors who had spent their lives fighting the Ottoman expansion. He didn't give them a speech about glory or gold. He told them the truth. He said that the bridge behind them was gone, and the only way out was through the fire. The bombardment began on the 5th of August. It wasn't a sudden strike, but a slow, methodical grinding of stone. The Ottoman cannons, some so large they required dozens of oxen to move, began to scream. Day and night, the iron balls smashed into the walls, sending shards of limestone flying like shrapnel. The air turned grey with the soot of 1,000 fires. Every time the dust settled, the Sultan's engineers would push closer, filling the moats with wood, earth, and the bodies of the fallen to create a path. For 3 weeks, the defenders fought back with a desperation that bordered on madness. They poured boiling oil from the heights. They met the Janissaries in the breaches, fighting chest to chest in the mud and the dark. Quick one, smash that like if you didn't see that coming. We tell the stories that history books usually skip over, so hit subscribe to stay in the loop. Now, back to the carnage. By the end of August, the outer city was a charred husk. Zrinski ordered his remaining men to retreat into the inner fortress. They were down to fewer than 800 men now. The heat was suffocating. The water in the wells was fouled with the iron taste of blood and the stench of the dead. Sultan Suleiman watched from his ornate gold-flecked tent. He was 71 years old, frail and dying. This was supposed to be his final triumph, the gateway to Vienna and the heart of Europe. But this tiny, mud-clogged fort was becoming his obsession. He sent messengers to Zrinski, offering him the crown of Croatia if he would just open the gates. He promised him safety, wealth, and power beyond imagining. Zrinski didn't even bother to write back. He simply pointed his sword at the Ottoman lines. Then, on the night of September 6th, something happened that changed the course of the war, but no one knew it yet. Inside the royal tent, surrounded by silken pillows and the smell of incense, the great Sultan took his last breath. He died of old age and the sheer exhaustion of the siege. The Grand Vizier, Mehmed Pasha, looked at the cold body of his master and realized the danger. If the army found out the Sultan was dead, they would break. The siege would collapse in a riot of succession. So he did the unthinkable. He strangled the Sultan's doctor to keep him quiet, hid the body under a bed, and continued to issue orders in the Sultan's name. he ordered one final, all-out assault for the next morning. September 7th dawned red and silent. The inner fortress of Szigetvar was burning. The walls were gone. Only a small square tower remained, packed with the last survivors. They were out of lead. They were out of food. Nikola Zrinski didn't put on his armor that morning. Instead, he dressed in his finest silk clothes, a deep crimson doublet, and a fur-trimmed cloak. He stuffed his pockets with 100 gold coins, muttering that the man who killed him should have something for his trouble. He took his father's heavy saber, a blade that had seen generations of war, and stepped out onto the bridge. His men stood behind him. They looked like ghosts, covered in soot and dried blood. Zrinski looked at the sea of Janissaries, waiting just a few yards away, and he smiled. It wasn't a hero smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally finished his work. He ordered the gates to be thrown open. A single giant mortar, packed to the brim with broken iron and stones, was fired directly into the Ottoman ranks at point-blank range. As the smoke cleared, Zrinski charged. He didn't scream a battle cry. He just ran. His men followed, a small, ragged wedge of steel slamming into the thousands of Ottoman soldiers. For a few minutes, it was chaos. Zrinski cut down 2 Janissaries before a musket ball found his chest, then another hit his head. He fell on the bridge, his crimson silk turning a darker shade of red. The Ottomans swarmed the fortress. They were furious. They had lost nearly 30,000 men to take this pile of rocks. They poured into the final tower, looking for loot, looking for the last of the defenders. But Zrinski had one last trap waiting. As the Ottoman soldiers crowded into the magazine, a slow-burning fuse reached the gunpowder stores. 3,000 pounds of powder ignited at once. The explosion was so massive it was heard for miles. The tower didn't just collapse, it evaporated, taking hundreds of the victors with it. When the smoke finally cleared, Szigetvar was gone. There was nothing left but blackened earth and the silence of the marsh. The Ottomans had won. They held the ground, but the cost was too high. With the Sultan dead and the army decimated, the Grand Vizier had no choice. He turned the massive host around and marched back toward Istanbul. Vienna was saved. Europe was safe. All because 2,300 men decided that some things are more important than survival. If you walk through those marshes today, they say the air still feels heavy. The stone is gone, the steel has rusted away, but the memory of that crimson silk on the bridge, that remains. They stood, they fell, and in doing so, they changed the world forever.